Manager lost with the Millionaire'S Hindi, until the housekeeper surprised him. Benjamin Sterling felt the sweat dripping down his forehead as he tried to control the situation unfolding at the luxurious, majestic Grand Hotel. An elegant man of approximately 50 years old screamed incomprehensible words through the hallways of the 10th floor, gesturing frantically and clutching an old photograph against his chest. The businessman Sanjay Kapoor, a naturalized American for decades, shouted in Hindi a phrase that echoed through the hotel's marble corridors. Benjamin, even with his 10 years of experience as a manager, had never faced such a disconcerting situation. The other guests were starting to come out of their rooms, some recording the scene with their cell phones. "Sir, you need to calm down," said Benjamin, approaching cautiously. "We can talk in my office." But Sanjay just shook his head, continuing to repeat the same phrase in Hindi, tears streaming down his face. His hands trembled as he showed the photo to anyone who passed by, a faded image of a young woman smiling. Martha Higgins watched everything from a distance, leaning against her cleaning cart. Her 43 years of life had taught her to recognize desperation when she saw it, and that man was clearly desperate. Something in his accent, even while shouting, reminded her of distant voices from her childhood. Benjamin pulled out his phone and opened a translation app, trying to capture the words Sanjay kept repeating. The technology failed to understand the urgency and the specific dialect the man was using. The hotel security guards approached, but Benjamin signaled for them to keep their distance. "Kahan hai meri behan? Kahan hai Priya?" shouted Sanjay again, kneeling on the marble floor. It was then that Martha felt her heart race. Those words, she knew them. Memories from a time she preferred to forget came flooding back like a wave. Her breathing quickened as she slowly approached the group. "Aap Priya ko jante hain," whispered Martha in perfect Hindi. The silence that followed was deafening. Sanjay stopped shouting instantly, his wide eyes fixed on the housekeeper who had just spoken his native language. Benjamin stood speechless, as did the other employees who had gathered to watch the commotion. You speak Hindi?" asked Sanjay in English, his voice hoarse from all the shouting. Martha nodded shyly, her hands gripping the cleaning cloth she was carrying. "A little. You were asking about someone named Priya." Sanjay's legs went weak and he had to lean against the wall. Priya Kapoor. My sister. She worked here 20 years ago. I've been looking for her for so long." Benjamin intervened quickly, fearing the situation was slipping out of his control. "Sir, I apologize, but we don't have employee records from 20 years ago. Our system—" "I have documents," interrupted Sanjay, pulling a leather folder from his briefcase. "Letters she sent me from this address. She disappeared after she started working here." Martha felt a lump form in her throat. The name Priya echoed in her mind like a ghost from the past. She looked at the photo Sanjay was holding, and for a moment thought she recognized something familiar in those delicate features. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. Benjamin tried to maintain control of the situation, guiding Sanjay away from the busy hallways. "Let's go to my office where we can talk more privately. Martha, go back to your work, please." But Martha didn't move. Something deep in her soul kept her from walking away. "Mr. Benjamin, may I see the photo?" Sanjay extended the image with trembling hands. It was a family photo taken somewhere in India decades ago. A young woman of about 25 smiled radiantly beside a younger man Martha recognized as Sanjay. "She had a birthmark here," Sanjay said, pointing to the woman's neck in the photo. "And she always wore a gold bracelet I gave her for her 18th birthday." Martha's world seemed to spin. Her childhood memories, long buried, began to surface. A kind woman who had found her alone on the streets of a slum in New York City when she was only 7 years old. A woman who spoke English with a foreign accent and sang songs in a language Martha didn't understand at the time. I need a moment," Martha murmured, dropping her cart and hurrying toward the staff restroom. Benjamin was confused by the housekeeper's reaction, but his attention returned to Sanjay as he began showing more documents, letters written in Hindi and English, all bearing the hotel's letterhead from 20 years ago. My sister came to the United States to work as a housekeeper. She sent these letters in the first few months, then complete silence. I hired detectives, searched immigration records, but it was as if she had simply vanished. In the restroom, Martha washed her face with cold water, trying to collect her thoughts. The woman who had raised her, whom she had always called Aunt Shanty, had never told her much about her past. She only said that she had left her family in India to start a new life in the United States. Martha vaguely remembered how Shanty would always grow melancholy when she received letters from abroad, and how she stopped receiving them after a few years. She also remembered the gold bracelet Shanty always wore, the same one now kept in her home as the only keepsake of the woman who had saved her from the streets. When she returned to the hallway, Martha found Benjamin trying to convince Sanjay to leave the hotel. "Sir," as I said, "we don't have records that old. I suggest you look for other ways to—" "Wait," Martha interrupted, her voice coming out stronger than she expected. "May I see the letters?" Benjamin looked at her, annoyed. "Martha, this is none of your business. Get back to work." But Sanjay was already holding out one of the letters to her, his eyes full of hope. Martha immediately recognized the delicate handwriting she had seen so many times in the little notes Shanty used to leave for her when she was a child. "This letter," Martha began, her voice trembling. "It talks about a girl she found on the streets, a girl who was calling for her mother." Sanjay's eyes widened. "You can read Hindi?" "Shanty taught me when I was little," Martha admitted, tears beginning to well up. "She found me when I was 7. I was living alone under a bridge after my mother." Martha stopped, unable to continue. The memories were too painful. Shanty had been her salvation, the woman who had taken her off the streets and given her love, an education and a home. Benjamin watched the exchange with growing discomfort. The situation was slipping out of his control, and he knew that any scandal could damage the hotel's reputation. "Martha, I think you're confusing things. Thousands of people have passed through this hotel." "I'm not confusing anything," Martha interrupted, with uncharacteristic firmness. "Shanti Kapoor raised me. She told me she worked cleaning rooms at a luxury hotel in New York City, that she had left her family in India to start a new life." Sanjay dropped the folder, the documents scattering across the marble floor. You knew her? Where is she? I need to see her." The silence that followed was heavy with a pain Martha didn't know how to express. How could she tell this man that the woman he had been searching for all these years had passed away 5 years ago? How can I explain that Priya had spent her final years caring for abandoned children, turning her own pain into love for others? "Mr. Sanjay," Martha began softly. "Priya, she passed away 5 years ago. Heart problems." The scream of agony that came from Sanjay echoed through the hotel hallways like the lament of a soul that had just lost its last hope. He knelt again, this time not out of despair, but from a deep, final pain. Benjamin tried to intervene, discreetly calling for security, but Martha knelt beside Sanjay, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "She talked about you every day. She told stories about when you were kids in India. She kept your photo under her pillow. Why did she never come back? Why did she stop writing?" Sanjay sobbed. Martha hesitated. This was the part of the story that she herself had never fully understood. Priya always avoided talking about the reasons that had kept her from going home or staying in touch with her family. It was then that an authoritative voice cut through the moment. "What's going on here?" Everyone turned to see Harrison Sterling, the owner of the hotel, approaching in a hurry. His 68 years carried the weight of decades building a hotel empire, and his expression showed irritation at the commotion in his establishment. "Dad," Benjamin stood up quickly. "It's just a misunderstanding. This gentleman was looking for information about a former employee." But Benjamin's words died when Harrison stopped abruptly at the sight of the photo Sanjay was still holding. The older man's face visibly paled, and his right hand began to tremble. "Priya," Harrison murmured, almost inaudibly. The recognition was instantaneous for everyone present. Sanjay slowly rose to his feet, his eyes fixed on the man who had just spoken his sister's name with disturbing familiarity. "You knew her," It wasn't a question, but a statement loaded with accusation. Harrison looked around, noticing the staff and a few guests watching the scene. "Let's go to my office now." Harrison's office was on the top floor of the hotel, with a panoramic view of Rockaway Beach. The walls were decorated with photos of celebrities and politicians who had stayed there, hotel industry trophies, and honorary diplomas. But at that moment, all that success seemed insignificant in the face of the tension hanging in the air. Martha was the last to enter, still uncertain of her right to be there. Benjamin closed the door behind them, his face showing growing confusion about what he was discovering about his own father. 25 years, Harrison began, his voice carrying a weight he had borne alone for decades. 25 years thinking about her every day. Sanjay clenched his fists. "So, you know what happened to my sister?" Harrison walked to the window, turning his back to the group. Priya was... She was special. She arrived here young, determined, with dreams of building a better life. I was younger, having just taken over management of the hotel after my father left. And Sanjay's voice was heavy with impatience and barely contained anger. "And I fell in love with her." Harrison turned around, his eyes welling up. "Completely, desperately. She was everything I didn't know I was looking for." Martha felt a knot in her stomach. The pieces of a puzzle she had never fully understood were starting to come together. The nights she found Priya crying without explanation, the moments when she stared at the horizon with an inexplicable sadness. Benjamin watched his father with a growing expression of shock. He had never seen Harrison so vulnerable, so human. If you loved each other, why did she disappear? Why did she stop writing to the family? Sanjay stepped forward, his voice trembling with withheld emotion. Harrison closed his eyes as if reliving an old pain. "Because I was a coward. My family, society at the time, a relationship between a white man from an elite American family and an Indian immigrant was unthinkable. My parents made that very clear." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sound of waves crashing on the beach below. Martha felt tears streaming down her face as she finally understood the sadness she had always seen in Shanti's eyes. "So you rejected her?" Sanjay's accusation cut through the air like a blade. "Worse than that," Harrison admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I made up a job offer in Chicago. I said I had found her a better position at another hotel with a higher salary. I paid for her ticket, helped her move, and then I never looked for her again." Benjamin felt as if the ground were disappearing beneath his feet. The man he had always admired as an example of integrity had lied and abandoned the woman he loved because of social pressure. "You destroyed her life," Sanjay said, his voice charged with controlled fury. "She never went back home because she was ashamed to admit she had been deceived. She never wrote again because her heart was broken." Harrison nodded, unable to deny the truth. "I know. I spent 25 years trying to find her, hiring detectives, combing through records, but she had simply disappeared." It was then that Martha found her voice. She didn't disappear. She just learned to live with the pain. All eyes turned to her. Martha took a deep breath, preparing to tell the story Shanti deserved to have told. "After you sent her away, she did go to Chicago, but the job you arranged didn't exist. She ended up on the street with no money, not knowing anyone. That's when she found me." Harrison leaned on the table, the weight of guilt almost bringing him down. "I was alone, hungry, scared. My mother had passed away a month earlier, and I had nowhere to go. Shanti saw me under that bridge and didn't think twice. She took me home, gave me food, affection, and education." Martha paused to wipe away her tears. She turned her pain into love for others. In the last years of her life, she took care of more than 15 abandoned children. Our house was a home for those who had no one. Sanjay approached Martha, his eyes shining with a mix of pride and sadness. "That's so like her. She always took care of others, even when she herself was suffering." "She talked about you every day," Martha continued, looking at Sanjay. "She told stories about your childhood in India, about how you used to protect her from the other boys at school. She kept your photo and reread your old letters every night before going to sleep. And what about me? Harrison asked with a broken voice. Did she talk about me? Martha hesitated. This was the most painful part to tell. She never said your name, but sometimes when she thought I was asleep, I would hear her crying and whispering, "Harrison, Harrison," softly. The businessman collapsed into the chair, covering his face with his hands. Benjamin watched his father with a mixture of pity and disappointment he had never felt before. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. I loved her, Harrison whispered through his fingers. God is my witness that I loved her more than my own life. But I was young, pressured by my family, by society. I thought I was doing what was best for her. What was best for her? Sanjay exploded, no longer able to contain his anger. You abandoned her. She spent the rest of her life blaming herself for not being good enough, for believing in empty promises. Benjamin finally found the courage to speak. Dad, I can't believe you did this. All my life you taught me about honesty, about treating people with respect, and I learned those lessons the hard way. Harrison lifted his head, his eyes red from tears. Every day of the last 25 years has been a punishment. Every decision I've made since then has been trying to make up for what I did to her. Martha watched the interaction between father and son with growing interest. There was something in their dynamic that reminded her of her own conversations with Shanti about forgiveness and second chances. Shanti taught me something, Martha said softly, drawing everyone's attention. She used to say that holding anger in your heart is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Sanjay looked at her in surprise. She always said that when we were kids. She raised me with love, even with a broken heart. She taught me that people make mistakes, that sometimes they hurt the ones they love without meaning to, and that forgiveness isn't for the one who did wrong, but for the one who was hurt. Harrison stood up slowly, walking over to a shelf where he kept personal items. From a locked drawer he pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to propose to her, he said, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring. I had bought this ring. I was gathering the courage to stand up to my family. But then my father found out about our relationship and I wasn't strong enough. The ring sparkled under the office light, a tangible symbol of a love that never had the chance to fully bloom. Martha felt her heart tighten, imagining how Shanti would feel if she knew that Harrison truly loved her enough to want to marry her. She carried that love until the end, Martha said gently. Even hurt, even feeling rejected, she never stopped loving you. She just learned to love others too. Benjamin watched the scene unfold with a mix of conflicting emotions. On one hand, he was shocked by the revelation about his father's past. On the other, he was beginning to understand the melancholy he had always noticed in Harrison, the way he treated his employees with excessive respect, especially the women. What can we do now? Benjamin asked, breaking the heavy silence. How can we honor her memory? Sanjay looked at the ring in Harrison's hands, then at Martha. Where is she buried? I'd like to visit her, bring flowers, talk to her one last time. She wasn't buried, Martha replied softly. Shanti always said that when she passed, she wanted her ashes scattered in the sea. She said water has no borders, that this way she could find her way home somehow. Harrison closed his eyes, a fresh wave of emotion hitting him. She always loved the sea. We used to walk along Rockaway Beach on our days off. She said the waves reminded her of the sound of the monsoons in India. I kept some of her things, Martha continued. Photos, letters, the bracelet you gave her. She always said that one day I should return them to her family. Sanjay's eyes widened. You have the bracelet, the one I gave her for her 18th birthday. Martha nodded, reaching into the pocket of her blouse where she always carried a small gold chain. She gave it to me shortly before she passed. She said it was to remind me that I would always have a family, even when I felt alone. With trembling hands, Martha pulled the bracelet from her pocket. It was a delicate piece, with small charms representing elements of Indian culture. Even after so many years, the gold still shone as if it had been recently polished. Sanjay took the bracelet with reverence, his tears dripping onto the precious metal. I spent all my childhood savings to buy this for her. I wanted her to have something special, something that would always remind her of my brotherly love. Harrison watched the scene with renewed pain. May I touch it? Martha hesitated for a moment, but then extended the bracelet to Harrison. When he held it, his hands trembled visibly. She was wearing this the day we said goodbye, Harrison murmured. I remember how it shone against her skin when the sunlight hit it. Benjamin felt a wave of compassion for his father that he had never experienced before. Despite his disappointment with the choices Harrison had made, he was beginning to understand the depth of regret the man carried. Father, Benjamin said softly, why did you never tell me about her? Harrison returned the bracelet to Martha before answering. How could I explain to my son that I abandoned the woman I loved out of fear? How could I be an example for you while carrying that guilt? Maybe by telling the truth you would have taught me an even more valuable lesson, Benjamin replied, the importance of fighting for love, regardless of external pressures. Martha watched the conversation between father and son with growing interest. There was something in their family dynamic that reminded her of her own conversations with Shanti about relationships and regrets. Shanti used to say that the past can't be changed, but the future is still being written, Martha said, drawing everyone's attention. She dedicated the last 20 years of her life to helping children who had no one. She turned her pain into purpose. Sanjay wiped his eyes and straightened up. She was always like that. Even when we were kids, she always found ways to help others, even when we were the ones who needed help. I'd like to meet those children she helped, Harrison said suddenly. I'd like to continue the work she started. Martha looked at him in surprise. Mr. Harrison, many of them have already grown up, have their own families now, but there are still a few who need help. Shanti always dreamed of opening an official place, a home for abandoned children. Then let's do it, Harrison said with growing determination. Let's create a foundation in her name, a place where children can find love and opportunities. Benjamin watched his father with newfound admiration. This was the first time in years he'd seen Harrison genuinely excited about something beyond the hotel business. I want to be part of this, Sanjay said immediately. I have resources, contacts. We can do something big, something that truly honors her memory. Martha felt her heart racing at the possibility. It was as if Shanti were somehow orchestrating that meeting from the other side. She would be so happy, Martha murmured, the tears flowing again. She always said her greatest dream was to see every child in the world with a home, with a family. Harrison walked to the window again, but this time his posture was different. There was determination in his shoulders, a renewed purpose in his stance. This hotel has always been my pride, he said, looking at the beach view, but now I realize the true legacy isn't the awards on the wall or the profits in the bank. It's what we do for the people who need it most. Benjamin felt a surge of emotion. We could start small, maybe turn a wing of the hotel into temporary housing for struggling families. No. Harrison turned around, his eyes shining with a determination Benjamin hadn't seen in years. Let's do this right. Let's build a place of our own, a place worthy of the love Shanti had for children. Sanjay nodded vigorously. In India, we have a tradition of building orphanages in memory of loved ones. It's considered one of the noblest ways to honor someone. Martha felt as if she were dreaming. The possibility of seeing Shanti's dream come true through the very men who had marked her life was almost surreal. I'd like to help too, Martha said timidly. Shanti taught me so much about caring for children, about giving unconditional love. I could help coordinate, to make sure the place has the kind of warmth she always gave. Harrison looked at her with renewed respect. Martha, you would be perfect for this. No one knew Shanti's heart better than you. Benjamin watched the transformation happening before his eyes. His father, who had always been focused only on business, was discovering a deeper purpose. And he himself felt growing excitement at the possibility of being part of something truly meaningful. We need a name for the foundation, Benjamin said. The Shanti Kapoor Foundation, Sanjay answered immediately. so her name is never forgotten. Harrison nodded, but there was something else in his eyes. And we need to do this the right way. It can't seem like we're trying to buy forgiveness or clear our consciences. It has to be genuine. It has to be for her. Martha understood Harrison's concern. Shanti always said that good deeds done out of guilt don't have the same value as those done out of love. She believed that motivation matters as much as the action. Then let's do it out of love, Sanjay said simply. Love for her, love for the children we're going to help, love for the idea that we can turn pain into healing. The rest of the afternoon was spent planning. Harrison made calls to architects and lawyers. Sanjay contacted NGOs specialized in childcare. Benjamin started researching necessary regulations and licenses, and Martha shared memories of Shanti, her ideas about how an ideal home for children should work. When the sun began to set over Rockaway Beach, the group had taken the first steps to make Shanti's dream a reality. But there was still a pending matter weighing on Martha's heart. "Mr. Harrison," she said hesitantly, "Shanti left something for you." Harrison stopped reviewing the documents he was organizing. "For me?" Martha opened her purse and took out an envelope yellowed by time. She wrote this shortly before she passed. She said that if you ever showed up looking for her, I should give it to you. The silence in the office was absolute. Harrison took the envelope with visibly trembling hands. His name was written in Shanti's delicate handwriting, the same one he remembered from the little notes she used to leave for him years ago. "She knew you would come looking for her," Martha explained softly. "She always knew." Harrison looked at Sanjay and Benjamin, as if asking permission to read the letter in private. Sanjay nodded understandingly. "Maybe it's better if you read it alone first," Sanjay suggested. "Later, if you want to share." Harrison nodded, putting the letter in the inside pocket of his jacket. "Thank you. I need a moment to process all of this." Benjamin approached his father and for the first time in years embraced him. "Dad, we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do to fix them." Martha watched the embrace between father and son with a sad smile. She remembered how Shanti always said that love between families was the most powerful force in the world, capable of healing even the deepest wounds. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot since we're just starting out. Now continuing. When they left the office, the hotel was quieter. The guests had retreated to their rooms or to the restaurants, and the marble hallways echoed their footsteps solemnly. Sanjay stopped at the front desk and turned to Martha. "I'd like you to tell me more about her last years. I want to know how she lived, if she was happy, if she had friends." Martha smiled sadly. "She had a beautiful life, Mr. Sanjay. Difficult in many ways, but beautiful. Always surrounded by children who saw her as a mother, always finding reasons to smile even when her heart ached." "Did she get married? Did she have children of her own?" Sanjay asked hesitantly. "No," Martha shook her head. "She always said she already had all the children she needed, but I knew there was a space in her heart that always remained empty." Harrison, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "The space I left when I abandoned her." Martha looked at him with compassion. "Shanti wasn't a bitter person, Mr. Harrison. She chose to forgive. She chose to love despite the pain. That was the kind of person she was." Benjamin watched the conversation with growing admiration for a woman he had never met personally, but whose impact was becoming clear through Martha's words. "How are we going to explain all this to the hotel staff?" Benjamin asked, always practical. "The story will spread, people will ask questions." Harrison considered the matter. "We'll tell the truth, at least part of it, that I met Shanti years ago, that she was important to me, and that now we want to honor her memory through the foundation." "And the press?" Benjamin insisted. "Once we start building the foundation, it's going to attract attention." "Let it," Sanjay said with determination. "Shanti's story deserves to be told. Maybe it will inspire other people to help children in need." Martha felt a mixture of pride and nervousness at the idea that Shanti's story might become public. On one hand, she wanted the world to know what an extraordinary person Shanti had been. On the other, she feared that the most painful details might tarnish her memory. "We need to be careful with how we tell the story," Martha said. Shanti always valued her privacy. She wouldn't want to be portrayed as a victim. Harrison nodded vigorously. You're right. We'll focus on the work she did, the love she gave, the legacy she's leaving through you, and the children she helped. Sanjay pulled out his phone and showed an old photo. This is my family in India. Shanti has had nieces and nephews who never got to meet her. They deserve to know about the extraordinary aunt they had. Martha looked at the photo, seeing familiar features in the smiling faces. Shanti always talked about you all, especially about a niece who looked a lot like her as a child. Maya, Sanjay smiled sadly. My youngest daughter. She's 15 now, always asking about the aunt who disappeared before she was born. Maybe she could come to the United States for the foundation's opening, Benjamin suggested. It would be a way to reconnect the family. The idea excited Sanjay. The whole family should come. Shanti always dreamed of showing us the United States. She said in her letters that she had found a second home here. Harrison watched the conversation with a thoughtful expression. Martha, you mentioned that Shanti helped 15 children over the years. Would some of them want to be part of the foundation? I'm sure they would, Martha replied eagerly. Some are already adults, have professions, families of their own. But they all remember the love Shanti gave them. It would be a way to give back. Benjamin felt growing excitement. Just imagine, children who were helped by Shanti now helping other children. It's like a cycle of love and care. That was exactly what she wanted, Martha confirmed, tears of joy in her eyes. She always said that love only grows when it's shared. Harrison looked at his watch and realized how quickly the time had passed. It's late. We all need to process what happened today. How about we meet tomorrow to start putting the plans into action? Sanjay nodded. I'll be here at 9 in the morning. I want to start working on this immediately. Martha, Harrison turned to her. I'd like you to take a few days off from your normal duties. I want you to dedicate yourself entirely to planning the foundation. Obviously, with full salary. Martha was speechless for a moment. Mr. Harrison, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Harrison replied sincerely. You're giving us the chance to do something meaningful, something that can change lives. We're the ones who should be thanking you. When they said goodbye at the hotel entrance, each of them carried a mix of complex emotions. The pain of loss, the hope for a better future, the possibility of turning tragedy into purpose. Martha walked through the streets of New York City that night, with lighter steps than she'd had in years. She felt as if Shanti were walking beside her, smiling with approval at the plans that had been made. In his apartment, Harrison finally found the courage to open Shanti's letter. With trembling hands, he unfolded the paper and began to read the words she had written especially for him. The letter began simply, My dear Harrison, if you're reading this, it means you've finally found the courage to come looking for me. Harrison stopped reading for a moment, the weight of the words hitting him like a punch to the stomach. She knew. Shanti always knew he would come looking for her, even after all this time. The letter continued. I don't want you to feel guilty about what happened between us. We were young, the circumstances were difficult, and you made the decision you thought was best at the time. I understand that now, even though it took years to reach that understanding. Harrison's tears dripped onto the paper, lightly staining the blue ink. Shanti had written those words without bitterness, without accusation, only with the wisdom that comes from genuine forgiveness. What I want you to know is that our story, even though it was brief, was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. You taught me what it meant to love deeply, completely, without reservations. And that love didn't die when you left. It transformed into something greater. Harrison continued reading, discovering how Shanti had channeled the love she felt for him into love for the children she had saved from the streets, how she had turned the pain of separation into compassion for others. The letter ended with a revelation that brought Harrison to his knees. I always knew you would come back to find me. That's why I raised Martha, knowing that one day she would be the bridge between us. She has the best of both worlds, my ability to love unconditionally and your determination to make a difference in the world. Take care of each other, my love, and always remember that some loves are eternal, even when people pass on. Harrison spent the entire night rereading the letter, each word engraving itself into his soul like a promise of redemption. For the first time in 25 years, he felt that perhaps he could forgive himself for the mistake he had made. The next morning, everyone gathered again at the hotel. Harrison was different, his eyes still red from crying, but with a peace he hadn't shown in decades. "The letter," was all he could say, holding it out for the others to read. Sanjay read it first, his own tears falling as he recognized the wisdom and generosity that had always characterized his sister. Benjamin read it next, feeling even more admiration for a woman who had chosen forgiveness over bitterness. Martha was the last to read it, and when she finished, she was smiling through her tears. "She planned all of this," she murmured. "Somehow she knew this day would come." "She was always wiser than all of us," Sanjay said, folding the letter carefully. "Even when we were children, she saw connections that others didn't see." Harrison stood up and walked to the window, watching the morning movement on Rockaway Beach. "Today, I understand that I can't change the past, but I can dedicate the rest of my life to honoring the love she gave me." Benjamin approached his father. "Dad, you're not alone in this. We're all going to work together to make the foundation something Shanti would be proud of." Martha opened her purse and pulled out an old notebook. Shanti always wrote down ideas about what the perfect home for children would look like, positions she'd want to have, activities she thought were important, values she wanted to pass on. They spent the next few hours going through Shanti's notes, amazed at the level of detail and care with which she had thought about every aspect of childcare. There were lists of books appropriate for each age, nutritious recipes the children would enjoy, ideas for educational and recreational activities. "She really thought of everything," Benjamin commented, impressed. "It's like she spent years planning this." "She did," Martha confirmed. "Every time she saw a child on the street, every time she helped someone, she learned something new about what worked and what didn't." Sanjay flipped through the pages with reverence. "My sister was always meticulous. Even when we were kids, she'd plan her games weeks in advance." Harrison studied the notes with a mixture of admiration and regret. "Imagine what she could have accomplished if I'd been brave enough to stand up to my family." "Mr. Harrison," Martha said gently, "Shanti didn't believe in dwelling on what could have been. She believed in working with what you have and making the best of it." Benjamin realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. The transformation of three people bound together by love and loss into a force for good. "We're going to need a location to build the foundation, someplace special." Harrison had already thought about it. "I have a piece of land in Greenwich Village that I inherited from my grandfather. I never knew what to do with it, but now I think I do. It has a view of the bay, it's quiet, surrounded by trees. It would be perfect." Sanjay perked up. "I can hire the best architects from India to create something that honors both American and Indian culture. A blend that would represent who Shanti had become." Martha felt her heart racing with the possibilities. Shanti always said that the best homes are the ones where children can just be children. Places with plenty of room to run, cozy corners for reading, big windows for dreaming, and a huge kitchen, Benjamin added, remembering the notes. She wanted the children to learn how to cook, to see the preparation of food as an act of love. Harrison smiled for the first time since the day before. "Shanti loved to cook. She used to make Indian dishes for me, explaining every spice, every tradition behind every recipe. She taught some of her recipes to the children she cared for," Martha added. "She used to say that food is memory, that teaching someone to cook is giving that person the power to create happy memories." Sanjay stood up suddenly, as if he'd had a revelation. "We need to have a memorial ceremony before we start construction. In Indian culture, it's important to honor your ancestors before beginning something new." Harrison nodded immediately. "Yes, and maybe we can invite the children Shanti helped, so they can share their memories." Martha liked the idea. It would be a way of showing that the foundation isn't just about honoring Shanti, but about continuing the work she started. Benjamin began taking notes. "We need to think about the logistics. How many people would come? Where would it be? How would we organize it? On the beach, Harrison said without hesitation. Shanti loved the sea. We could do it on Rockaway Beach at sunset. Martha smiled, remembering the stories Shanti used to tell about her walks on the beach. She always said the waves carried away the sorrows and brought back hope. The days that followed were a mix of intense planning and emotional discoveries. Harrison contacted architects and engineers. Sanjay started the legal procedures to establish the foundation. Benjamin coordinated the administrative aspects, and Martha worked to contact all the children Shanti had helped over the years. The first child Martha managed to locate was Tyler, now a 32-year-old man, married and father of 2 children. When Martha explained about the foundation, he cried on the phone. "Aunt Shanti saved my life," he said between sobs. "I was living on the streets, stealing to eat, without any hope at all. She found me, gave me a home, taught me to read, helped me get my first job." Tyler was just the first of many. Martha discovered that the children Shanti had helped had become teachers, nurses, small business owners, dedicated family men. Each one carried a story of transformation that began with the unconditional love Shanti had offered. "It's incredible," Benjamin commented after hearing several of these stories. "A person can really change the world, one life at a time." Harrison was particularly touched by the stories. Each child she helped is a testament to the love she was capable of giving. It's as if she multiplied her capacity to love through every life she touched. Sanjay spent several nights talking with Martha about the methods Shanti used with the children. "She always had that gift," he explained. "Even when we were little, she could calm any crying child, make any shy child feel special. She taught me that each child is unique," Martha shared, "that there's no magic formula for caring for all of them the same way. Some need more affection, others more structure, others more space to explore." The date for the memorial ceremony was set for a month later, giving time for all the elements to be properly organized. Harrison used his connections to secure the necessary permits to use the beach. Sanjay brought lotus flowers from India, symbols of rebirth and purity. Benjamin organized the sound and the logistics. Martha coordinated with the families of the children Shanti had helped. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Sanjay received a call that changed everything. It was from his family in India, informing him that Shanti and Sanjay's mother, now 82 years old, wanted to come to the United States to participate in the ceremony. "My mother," Sanjay told the others with emotion. "She said she dreamed of Shanti last night. In the dream, Shanti was smiling and asking her to come to the United States to meet the family she had built here." Harrison felt a renewed responsibility. "She'll stay in my best suite. I want her to feel welcome, to see how we honor the memory of her daughter." Martha was nervous and excited at the same time. Shanti always talked about her mother, said she was the wisest woman she knew, that she had hands that healed any physical or emotional wound. Benjamin offered to go pick up the lady at the airport. It will be an honor to meet the mother of someone so special. The arrival of Sunita Kapoor in the United States was an emotionally intense moment for everyone. Despite her advanced age, she maintained the dignity and strength that Shanti always described. Her eyes, still bright and intelligent, examined each person as if she were trying to see through their souls. When Martha introduced herself, Sunita held her hands and said something in Hindi. Sanjay translated with tears in his eyes. "She said she can see Shanti in you, that you have the same gentle eyes her daughter had." Harrison approached hesitantly, unsure of how he would be received by the mother of the woman he had abandoned, but Sunita surprised him by taking his hands as well. "Shanti wrote to me about you," she said, in slow, measured English. "She never stopped loving you." The words struck Harrison like a blessing and a punishment all at once. "Mrs. Sunita, I made a terrible mistake. I abandoned your daughter when she needed me most." The elderly woman studied his face for a long moment before answering. "Young people make mistakes. Wise men spend the rest of their lives correcting those mistakes. Shanti told me about the foundation. She would be proud." Benjamin watched the exchange with fascination. There was a wisdom in Sunita's demeanor that transcended cultures and languages. She seemed to intuitively understand the feelings and motivations of everyone around her. "Grandma Sunita," Martha said timidly. "May I call you that?" The elderly woman smiled, completely transforming her expression. Of course, my dear. Shanti always said that family isn't just blood, but shared love. Sunita's presence brought a new dimension to the ceremony preparations. She told stories about Shanti's childhood, revealing details about her daughter's personality that even Sanjay didn't fully know. Shanti always cared for injured animals, Sunita told them as they had tea at the hotel. She brought home birds with broken wings, sick cats, even a small snake once. She said everything that suffered deserved love and care. Harrison felt each story like a sweet sting, revealing layers of the woman he had loved but never completely known. She tried to take care of me too, he murmured. I was the one who couldn't accept that care. She knew, Sunita said gently. Shanti always knew you carried wounds of your own. That's why she forgave you, even before you asked for forgiveness. Martha listened to the stories, filling in the gaps in her understanding of the woman who had raised her. She never told me about the animals, but now I understand why we always stopped to help stray cats. Sanjay shared his own memories. Shanti used to do shadow puppets for me when I had nightmares. She created stories where the heroes always won through kindness, never through violence. She did the same thing with me, Martha smiled. She used her hands to make shadows on the wall, inventing stories about brave princesses who saved entire kingdoms just by being kind. Benjamin was beginning to understand why this woman had made such a profound impact on so many lives. She seems to have had a special gift for seeing the best in people and situations. It was a gift, Sunita confirmed, but it was also a choice. Shanti chose to see beauty where others only saw problems. She chose to find hope where others only saw despair. Harrison reflected on that observation. Maybe that's what we need to do with the foundation. Not just care for the children, but teach them to see beauty and hope in their own lives. Exactly, Martha brightened. Shanti always said that what we most need to give children isn't just food and shelter, but the belief that they are special, that they have value, that they can make a difference in the world. The memorial ceremony was scheduled for the following Sunday at sunset. Harrison had organized everything meticulously: chairs on the sand for the elderly, a discreet sound system, flowers scattered in a circle near the water. On the morning of the ceremony, Martha woke up with a strange feeling, as if Shanti were present in the room. It wasn't a supernatural sensation, but rather the reassuring certainty that she was doing the right thing, that Shanti would approve of everything that was happening. Harrison arrived at the beach 2 hours before the event, personally checking every detail. Benjamin found him arranging the flowers for the 3rd time. Dad, everything is perfect, Benjamin said gently. Shanti would be proud of how you're taking care of every detail. I just want it to be worthy of her, Harrison murmured, his hands trembling slightly. She deserves us doing this right. Sanjay arrived with Sunita, both dressed in traditional Indian clothing but adapted for the tropical American climate. Sunita carried a small bronze urn that, according to her explanation, contained flower petals from the garden where Priya had played as a child. In our culture, Sanjay explained, we offer flowers to the water as a symbol of liberation and renewal. These petals will carry our blessing to Priya wherever she is now. Martha arrived accompanied by the first families of the children Priya had helped. Tyler brought his own children, wanting them to know the story of the woman who had saved their father. Chloe, now a first-grade teacher, brought photos of her current students, explaining how she used the methods Priya had taught her. One by one, others began arriving. Connor, who was now a nurse, Amber, who had opened a small bakery, Caleb, who had become a mechanic, Brooke, who had become a social worker. Each one carried a story of transformation that began with the love Priya had offered. As the sun began to set, more than 50 people were gathered on the beach. Harrison looked around and felt a wave of emotion as he realized how many lives Priya had touched, how many families had been impacted by her generosity. Benjamin was the first to speak, thanking everyone for coming, and briefly explaining how the idea for the foundation had come about. His voice was steady, but his eyes shone with contained emotion. Sanjay spoke next, sharing memories of Priya as a protective and gentle older sister. He told of how she always put others' needs before her own, of how she turned every difficulty into an opportunity for growth. Sunita stood up with Sanjay's help and spoke in Hindi, her words being simultaneously translated by her son. She blessed the foundation in Priya's name, asking that the work done there always be guided by the unconditional love her daughter represented. Harrison hesitated when it was his turn to speak. For a moment, words seemed insufficient to express everything he felt. Then, looking out at the sea that Priya had loved so much, he found his voice. "Priya taught me that true love is not possessive," he began, his voice growing heavy with emotion. "It is liberating. Even when I abandoned her, she transformed that love into something greater, something that benefited dozens of children over the years." He paused to take a deep breath, fighting back tears. "I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let her go. But she turned even my mistake into something beautiful, something that today unites us in common purpose." Martha was the last to speak, and when she stood up, she felt as if Priya were beside her, giving her courage. "Priya taught me that family is not determined by blood, but by love. That strength is not never falling, but always getting back up. That hope is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of love amid hardship." Tears streamed freely down her face as she continued. "She gave me life when I had no reason left to live. She gave me purpose when I felt lost. And now through this foundation, she continues giving life and purpose to all of us." When Martha finished speaking, Sunita approached the water carrying the bronze urn. One by one, the people joined her, forming a semicircle at the water's edge. The waves gently lapped at their feet as she opened the urn and began scattering the petals into the water. Each person had brought something to offer to the sea in memory of Priya: flowers, letters, small objects that represented their connection to her. Harrison offered the engagement ring he had bought so many years ago, finally finding peace in letting it go. Sanjay sang a traditional Indian song about separation and reunion, his voice blending with the sound of the waves. It didn't matter that most couldn't understand the words. The emotion was universal, touching every heart present. As the last petals disappeared into the waves, a reverent silence fell over the group. The sun was almost touching the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink that felt like a celestial farewell. End of story. Let us know what you thought of this moving story and where you're watching from. If you have something special to share with us, leave it in the comments with heartfelt words. Do you believe Harrison made the right decisions when creating the foundation? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for your company, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that touch the heart.